And lastly, we had a JMZO amendment, the electric vehicle charging station. This amendment has been reviewed and the commission had recommended our board adopt it, but Wrightstown Township had recommended a number of minor changes, including elimination of the requirement to maintain adequate working order for the stations. After lengthy discussion, agreed that the Board of Supervisors accept Wrightstown's recommendation and in a separate action, draft a maintenance ordinance for the charging stations. This separate ordinance would address location, number of stations, advertising, etc. Of particular concern was the possibility that in order to satisfy ADA requirements, EV stations would be located in prime parking spots adjacent to the handicapped parking spots. Our recommendation would be that this separate ordinance be developed for Newtown only, as there are more shopping areas within the limited parking, and we would have different concerns as far as giving up existing parking spaces for EV chargers. And that was all we had. Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, I had some resident asking about the about this ordinance for electric charging stations. So I'm not quite getting what you're saying. A separate ordinance just for Newtown, based on what Wrightstown said.
Well, right, we had approved the JMZO, the ordinance. We had it approved, and then Wrightstown had sent a letter to our solicitor with some proposed changes to the pretty much to the verbiage. I have it written down here. Our solicitor reviewed the recommendations and they want to make changes in definitions H21A, 21B, deleting the subsections that EV stations must always be in working order. And we wanted an explanation because we had already recommended approval to the Board of Supervisors. And part of it was the maintenance of them, who would be responsible for the maintenance of these EV stations.
Can I hold you up for just a second? So these are not commercial charging stations? These are charging stations maintained by the township? Is that what this is about?
Well, this would be the township because the thought was that they said to remove the general use because it's defined under, the term is not used anywhere else in the ordinance. That with the removal of the language, they must always be in working order. The thought was this type of requirement should not be included in the zoning code, but it's more suited for a property maintenance code, because we don't include fences, pools, or anything like that in the zoning code. So we would have a separate ordinance for Newtown only, because first of all, we have so much more commercial development than Wrightstown or Upper Makefield Township with our shopping centers. And we had a lot of concerns about the placement of these EV charging stations. And I don't think we've had any requests for any.
Wasn't there a request for some by the hotel? The commons?
And they did. They're privately. They put two of them. There are two back there.
There are two back there privately
yes.
owned, but this ordinance would not cover those.
No, not privately owned. No, because you can't, I guess, mandate what somebody does in their home. That's their responsibility.
Well, this parking lot is private property.
Yes. Yes.
Same within the shopping centers.
Well, we don't have any EV stations right now, and I don't believe we've had any. I mean, I haven't heard anything of anyone requesting to put them in.
Okay.
And we also had concerns about where they would be placed, and do EV charging stations have to be ADA compliant? Do they have to be an EV station that is also a handicap spot?
Okay, I guess I gotta look over this ordinance again. It's been around for a long time and I haven't looked at it lately, so thanks.
The ordinance that you're mentioning for Newtown Township, you're talking about that ordinance being for us.
For us only.
But the ownership of the stations will be dependent upon whoever owned the particular property. So we don't own these stations, we're just establishing the ordinance in regards to letting them know where
Well-
these stations could be.
I think they had moved something about, I have a lot of notes here. They removed the language that they must always be in working order.
Yeah, but that's not, but why would the township be responsible for that? Like Mr. Mackett, Brixmore owns the property, so I'm assuming Brixmore would be responsible for the maintenance of those stations,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
We're just establishing an ordinance of how it can be done.
correct.
Okay.
I mean, we want them, if we have them in the township, you want them to be in working order.
Sure, absolutely. I think the only place that I ever see these stations are where Rita's Water Ice is.
And they're gone.
Are they?
Yeah, the tenant that was in Team Logic in the front left, the building's empty, that they were for their employees.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So right now, the only EV stations we have in the township are, behind the hotel, which are privately owned. So it's up to the center. I mean, I don't think anybody's knocking on the door to put them in. We haven't heard anything.
Yeah,
I don't know if the supervisors have.
no. Well, it's something that's gonna have to be done.
But this would give just Newtown Township control over where they're placed, how they're maintained. I mean, do we want them prime parking spots? And do they need to be ADA compliant?
I guess, Mr. Solicitor, that's something for,
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that offhand. I would suggest that any publicly owned facility would most likely be required to be ADA accessible and ADA compliant. And even any privately owned facility may have to be ADA compliant if the private owner meets the requirements for having to comply with the ADA in the first place.
Something we're gonna be seeing again, and we'll work on it.